A ship vanishes into Arctic ice in 1931. 38 years pass before anyone sees her again, and when they do, she's still floating. Today, search teams with sonar, satellites, and millions of dollars in funding have found nothing. A century of technology, and the ocean keeps her secret completely. What does it take to make a 1,300-ton steel ship outlive every person who ever sailed her? The answer involves a captain who gave up too soon, an Inuit hunter who refused to let the story end, and a wooden shelter built on sea ice that nearly killed 15 men. Some of what happened next was buried in company paperwork for decades. None of it should have been possible. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why the Arctic still hasn't given her up. You're standing on a Swedish dock in 1914, and the ship in front of you doesn't look like a legend. She looks like work. Her name is Ångerman Elven, christened after one of Sweden's longest rivers, built by the Lindholmen shipyard in Gothenburg for a German shipping company in Hamburg. Steel-hulled, 230 feet long, a triple-expansion steam engine pushing her to a modest 10 knots. Nothing about her suggests she's about to become one of the strangest stories in maritime history. For the next several years, she does exactly what cargo ships do. She runs the Baltic Sea route between Hamburg and Sweden, hauling goods, earning nothing close to fame. Then the First World War ends and everything about her ownership changes overnight. But here's what nobody tells you. This ship survives a world war completely unscathed, only to nearly meet her end in peacetime ice. Under the Treaty of Versailles reparations terms, Germany hands over commercial tonnage to the Allied powers, and Ångerman Elven becomes British property. She's sold to the Hudson's Bay Company in 1921 for £15,000. They rename her Baychimo, base her out of Ardross in Scotland, and send her somewhere she was never designed for: the brutal, ice-choked waters of the Canadian and Alaskan Arctic. Think about what you just heard. A ship built for calm Baltic trade routes is about to spend the next decade hauling fur pelts and provisions through some of the most dangerous water on Earth. For 10 years, the Baychimo earns her keep quietly, trading provisions for furs at Hudson's Bay Company posts along Victoria Island and the northern coast occasionally, smuggling unofficial passengers listed as crew because she wasn't licensed to carry them. She is, by every account, an unremarkable workhorse. That's about to change forever. You're on deck at the end of a trading run, the hold packed with fur pelts, the crew exhausted and ready for Vancouver. Then the ice closes around the hull, not gradually, fast. The pack ice off Point Barrow seizes the Baychimo on October 1st, 1931, and for the first time in her career, she isn't going anywhere. The crew abandons ship, trekking half a mile across the frozen sea to shelter in Barrow for 2 days. When they come back, something strange has already happened. The ice has released her. She's floating free. For a moment, it looks like they've gotten lucky. And this is where everything changes. On October 8th, the ice grabs her again, and this time it's permanent. The Hudson's Bay Company scrambles aircraft to evacuate the crew. On October 15th, 22 men are flown out, but 15 men, including the ship's captain, stay behind. They build a shelter out of hatches and tarpaulins on the ice itself, planning to overwinter and protect their cargo. You would have made the same calculation they did: walk away from a £500,000 cargo of furs or risk a few more weeks in the Arctic dark to save it. They chose to stay. For over a month, men trudged out to the ship daily, clearing ice from the rudder, maintaining what they can. Then, on November 24th, 1931, a blizzard hits, and it doesn't stop for 3 days. When the storm finally clears, the crew climbs out of their shelter and looks for their ship. She's gone. No wreckage, no debris field, no oil slick on the ice. Just a fresh mound of pack ice where a 1,300-ton steel vessel used to be. The captain makes the only logical conclusion available to him: she's broken apart and sunk. Paperwork is filed in Vancouver months later, declaring the Baychimo a total loss. He was wrong, and the truth is about to humiliate every assumption maritime insurance had ever made about a wrecked ship. Here's what nobody tells you. A few days after the crew declared her lost, an Inuit seal hunter spots the Baychimo. She's sitting in the ice 45 miles from where the men last saw her, fully intact, completely unmanned, drifting like nothing happened. The 15 men track her down. They board her one final time, strip the most valuable furs from the hold, and make a decision that will haunt company records for the rest of the century. They judge her unfit to survive the winter and abandon her for good. The crew flies home to Vancouver. The Hudson's Bay Company writes her off completely. The ship had other plans. Within months, she spotted nearly 300 miles to the east, still afloat, still drifting, completely empty. In January 1932, a dog-sled traveler named Leslie Melvin sees her floating peacefully near shore, as if she's simply out for a cruise. The answer will make you question everything you thought you knew about what it takes to sink a ship. The Baychimo, unheated, unmanned, unmaintained, keeps surviving Arctic winters that would crush most vessels. In March 1933, a group of Inuit hunters board her, and a freak storm traps them on board for 10 days. When it finally clears, they discover they've been carried roughly 250 miles from where they first climbed aboard, completely against their will, passengers on a ghost ship with no one steering it. You would not have boarded that ship. Most people never connect how close those 10 men came to becoming permanent residents of the Baychimo's legend, rather than survivors of it. Months later, in August 1933, the schooner MS Trader finds her again, 12 miles off Wainwright, Alaska. This time, the boarding party includes Isabel Wiley Hutchinson, a Scottish botanist and author who salvages furniture and personal items from a ship that has now outlived its own abandonment by 2 full years. Sightings continue in 1934, 1935, and 1939. Trappers, sailors, and Inuit hunters spotting her appear and vanish through Arctic fog, earning her the nickname that will define her forever: the ghost ship of the Arctic. But here is what nobody tells you about the gap that follows. No confirmed sightings occurred during the Second World War or the entirety of the 1950s. For nearly 2 decades, the Baychimo simply disappeared from the record. And yet, she has not been declared sunk. She's just gone quiet. You're standing on the northern shore of Alaska in 1969. And a group of Inupiats spot a rusting hulk locked fast in the pack ice between Point Barrow and Icy Cape. There's no name visible on the hull. There doesn't need to be. 38 years after her crew abandoned her for dead, only one ship in the world could possibly still be out there. It's the Baychimo, and this is the last confirmed sighting of her in human history. Think about the scale of that number. 38 years. No crew, no fuel, no maintenance, no engine running to keep the hull from cracking in the seasonal freeze-thaw cycle that should have torn her apart within a decade. She outlasted the men who built her shelter on the ice. She outlasted the Second World War. She became, by every measure, one of the longest drifting vessels in recorded maritime history. And then, after 1969, nothing. No wreckage, no debris, no confirmed sightings since. The presumed explanation is almost anticlimactic given everything that came before it. Marine archaeologists believe the relentless cycle of freezing and thawing finally fatigued her steel hull beyond what even she could survive, and she slipped beneath the ice for the last time. But here is what nobody tells you. There's no proof of that. No body, no grave. Just the damning absence of her presence, decade after decade. In 2006, the state of Alaska launched an official search to finally resolve the mystery, sending experts to comb the Beaufort and Chukchi Seas using modern survey technology that didn't exist for any of the people who saw her last. They found nothing. To this day, the Baychimo has never been located, not as wreckage on the seafloor, not as a hull still locked somewhere in the permanent ice. What happens next defies all logic. Items connected to her, Inuit artifacts, and ethnographic collection gathered aboard her in 1930, kept resurfacing for decades afterward in museum archives, mislabeled and forgotten, only correctly identified by researchers in recent years. The ship that vanished from the ocean kept leaving fingerprints in places nobody expected. She is, as far as the official record goes, still missing. The Baychimo was never meant to be remembered. She was a workhorse, a Baltic River namesake turned Arctic fur carrier, the kind of ship that usually disappears into footnotes. Instead, she became something almost mythic, proof that the ocean doesn't always take what it's owed on schedule. For 38 years, she drifted without a single hand on her wheel, and the Arctic still hasn't told us how her story ends. Maybe that's the real reason she still fascinates people a century later. Some mysteries get solved. This one just keeps drifting, somewhere out there or nowhere at all. If you want more stories like this, the ones history almost let slip away, subscribe and tell me in the comments what mystery you want uncovered next.